I'm burning. Yeah, yeah. Coming up next on Mental Health Matters with Marty, how to successfully recover from traumatic events that happened in our lives. Stay tuned. Hey, y'all. Welcome to another edition of Mental Health Matters with Marty. We are so glad that you are here. Have you ever had one of those days where it just seemed like everything wants to act up? That's one of those days for me. But you know what? We keep pressing our way. Why? Because we're not going to allow the circumstances of things that we cannot control to control us. But I am so glad that you are joining us, and I'm still coming to you live and in living color all the way from sunny California, where the sun is always shining. Y'all, it's been hot. We haven't been quite in the triple digits, but we knocking on the door right next to it. So listen, as always, we want to share with you that Mental Health Matters with Marty is designed to be as psychoeducational and educational and information purposes only. We are not a replacement or a substitute for your mental health and wellness. We are just a supplement in your mental health journey. If you are experiencing any type of psychiatric or medical emergency, listen, we want to make sure that you go to your nearest urgent care or call 911. Okay? Come on. Listen, invite people in to join us on tonight. If you missed last week's edition with Jeff Walker, listen, you missed an amazing show. And then if you missed the subsequent night on Wednesday when we had the doctors, you missed another exciting show. So make sure you go back and check those two shows out as we're talking about men's health and wellness, as June is Men's Health Month. And we want to make sure that men they're aware of their health and all health, physical health, mental health, spiritual health with that. So with that in mind, how do you engage? And how do we engage? How do you see your comments? We've changed our format a little. I hope you're liking the way we're looking these days. But to engage with us, please submit your comments to Mental Health Matters with Marty page or to Marcel Media Group page. Again, that's Mental Health Matters with Marty and Marcel Media. That's how your comments are seen, and we can post them in our show. If not, I'll see you later and can definitely, tag and talk to you a little bit later about that. But if you want your comments to be seen and viewed, please go to our Mental Health Matters with Marty Facebook page or on YouTube at Marcel Media Group. Again, in this time, we have been dealing a lot with trauma. What does trauma look like? And we're talking about trauma, the road to recovery, how to recover from health-related traumas. Too many of us are definitely have had so many various forms of health-related trauma. Last week, we discussed how 80% of strokes can be avoided simply by the way that we take care of ourselves. And it is urgent, it is critically vital that we do a better job, especially we as Black men, with taking care of our mental and physical health. We can no longer sweep it under the rug as if it is an ends to a means. But listen, we need to know how to deal with trauma. We need to know how to deal with ourselves. We need to know how to process these things because, in the end, by not addressing various traumas, by not addressing various mental health challenges, by not addressing the events in our lives that have made such a drastic and tragic impact in us, we are not doing ourselves any good whatsoever. In fact, we're continuing to keep the trauma cycle running, which is doing physical and is detrimental to our health and well-being. Ultimately, it can cause death if it goes unnoticed and untreated. Too many of us have untreated trauma and untreated stressors in our lives, thinking that we can just take a tablet. Jeff Walker was the bomb. Listen, he is a walking miracle. He told you and reminded us his blood pressure was 280 over 176. You heard me correctly, 280 over 176. And it was absolutely a mess. And so, with that, he was here to share with us how he had his road to recovery. And the road to recovery is not always an easy one, but it is still a road to recovery nonetheless. But I'm so excited. I don't want to bore you to death with just my topic and my thoughts on this. I want to bring on a very dear friend of mine who I call the trauma specialist himself. You're going to be seeing him on some new stuff that's coming out. I'm just honored to know that this is my friend, this is my colleague, and that I got someone I can call and pull in my Rolodex who is a trauma expert, but coming all the way from the DMV area. Please welcome back to the Mental Health Matters with Marty stage, none other than my brother, Cory George. What's up, Cory?
Having me. I'm always excited about talking about this because it's not a fun topic, but it's a necessary topic for our culture.
Yes, it really is, Cory. Man, you're looking good. Uh, uh, Someone said that you've been taking a few little vacations. I'm not one to gossip, but you've been doing some.
Well, so I had two back-to-back vacations, and honestly, I don't know how people travel back-to-back. Packing and going through security, I don't.
It's a
Well, but
mess.
but my new venture, I'll be traveling more, which I think that's the only downside about what's happening is I like being at home. I'm a homebody. You know,
Really?
I was in Spain, but I was craving my bed. And going back to what I've built as my comfortable space, which is my home.
Right.
So
Right. Well, maybe
yeah,
we can take our bed and put it in Spain and enjoy it a lot better.
maybe a mattress pad.
Okay.
But
Right. How was Barcelona, man?
um, so the funniest thing is everything is served with mayonnaise, and I don't understand. Okay,
Okay.
everything is served
Okay.
with mayonnaise.
Hey,
Um,
Auntie.
it 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 was a ton of walking, which was good for my health overall, but my
Mm-hmm.
shoes were
Mm-hmm.
worn out, and I couldn't find a good Long Island iced tea.
Now, I know they got some other. Italy, Spain has wines. You know.
Well, I think what happened was because when we went, now the travel restrictions are very different now, but
Mm-hmm.
the process of going there was exhausting because you had to get tests. Although I'm fully vaccinated,
Right.
had to get
Right.
tests, had to use the app to sign up forms. It was a lot, and everywhere we went, by I think the curfew was 10 o'clock.
Right.
So the
Right.
nightlife was probably different than what it's normally known to be anyway. So,
Yes. Yes.
but it was just good to get away. It was just good to get
Good.
away. But then after that, I went back home to Houston like the week after, and I didn't realize how much I needed it until I got back home. So
Wow.
everything is good now. Yeah,
Excellent. Excellent. You saw Thomas in the shout out. What's up, Thomas?
yeah. I
Uh,
saw.
yeah. Right. We saw him. Huh?
Yeah.
Listen, you are the trauma expert, certified trauma coach. Definitely been doing a lot with trauma. Talk to me, Cory, about why it. First, let's define trauma because I think a lot of us still don't fully understand the definition of trauma. What is trauma, and how do I know if I've been through and have experienced a traumatic event in my life?
Well, it's very interesting because although we may talk about what may be considered a traumatic event, not everyone goes
Mm-hmm.
through trauma with that event. So when we talk about trauma,
Mm.
we're talking about the psychological reaction that falls
Yes.
outside of our normal range of coping mechanisms.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the way that you know that, and here's the thing, trauma is very tricky because it can clear itself up in 30 days. So we don't
Okay.
normally diagnose things such as PTSD until like maybe at least a month afterwards. But
Mm-hmm.
uh, but most people, we actually recover on our own. But
Mm-hmm.
it's when it's just sitting there and you have no recourse and you start managing your life around trauma, and so your whole life is built around that trauma, and so you're
Right.
virtually going through avoidance every day.
Right, right. That's good. That's good. That's good. So tell us about, if you will, what trauma might look like and what are some of the signs that we might be experiencing with trauma?
See, from my experience, trauma can look like numbing, it can look like fear, anxiety, anything that looks a bit unreasonable for the event. So it's like, so the punishment doesn't fit the crime, right? So you're
Right.
looking at that, and you're looking at a person that may be that may always be tired. Because as thinking of stuff can exhaust you just as much as working out every day. You
Right.
know,
Right.
um, and let's look at our sleep hygiene. Let's look
Mm-hmm.
at our body because our body can hold messages that our face does not show. So
Right.
the most common physical things that we will experience are gut pains, and why? Because the stress hormones have to empty out down there. That's where they
Mm-hmm.
sit. So you'll have
Okay.
gut reactions. You'll have headaches. You may have that high blood
Mm.
pressure, and you may
Mm-hmm.
find that, especially if you're constantly stressed and the stress hormone is always in your body, you may be surprised that you become what's known as being a diabetic in some cases, because it's not because
Yes.
of your natural body's function, but if the stress hormone is activated constantly, the blood sugar is always rising. And when your stress hormone is activated, it actually robs your body of other functions because your body's trying to fight, flight, or flee. So
Mm-hmm.
also when we look at a lot of autoimmune diseases, they can be traced
Mm-hmm.
back to stress as well
Right.
too. So this is why it's important that it's not a mental issue; it becomes a physical issue, as you said before.
Yes, and I think that's what so many times we don't realize, and having stress tests, because you're right, it can turn into high blood pressure. It can turn into
Mhm.
having diabetes being activated, some other things, just
Mhm.
so many other physiological outputs that it can have, that we need to pay attention to ourselves and our bodies. As a trauma recovery counselor, what are some of the tips that you, or even again, some of the signs we see that, but now how does it affect our mood? We definitely talked about the physical signs, but what are
Mhm.
now some of the psychological and emotional signs that we might exhibit and demonstrate as a result of the trauma that we may have experienced?
Well, I will say when you find yourself easily triggered, like
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes we are reminded about past events that are taking place in present day, but they don't match up. It's
Right.
just that it's a
Right.
reminder. And if you find yourself easily agitated, if you're avoiding going out into places simply because of the trauma and it's not because it's dangerous, but if your
Right.
mind perceives it as a threat, then you will, in most cases, avoid it, which is a natural response. So what I don't
It
want to do
is.
is make people feel bad about their body doing what it's supposed to do to keep you out
Mm-hmm.
of harm.
Mm-hmm.
But in some cases, that overactivation is causing other stress inside the body as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because the other things I think we have to look at too, Corey, when talking about that, when our body is overstimulated, we have to look at our sleeping patterns. Are we sleeping too much, or are we
Absolutely.
not sleeping enough? There can even be some nightmares that come along with it. Definitely some
Yes. Yes.
avoidance. And a lot of times I say, if we're changing anything that is changing the natural patterns, or is impairing our natural living abilities, whether it's
Mhm.
working, whether it's interacting with others, whether we're finding a lot of mood changes, whatever that might be,
Yes.
if we are not operating in our normal capacity as a direct result of something we might have directly experienced, we may have
Mhm.
seen, Or even, can we even talk about this? The vicarious trauma that so many black men and black and brown people are carrying because of the George Floyds, because of the Ahmaud
Oh
Arbery's,
yeah,
because of so many other things. We cannot um, we cannot ignore all those vicarious traumas. And when I'm saying vicarious, that's that shared trauma that we might
yeah,
have because we have empathy, we have sympathy for what is going on, especially with social media now, and they keep replaying that knee in his
yeah.
neck over and over and over again.
But also we have to, every time I'm on your show, I talk about how trauma affects the DNA. You know,
Yes,
I
yes,
always talk that on and off switches in our DNA. It hasn't changed our DNA, but it has made us more prone to certain types of mental
exactly.
reactions. So,
Yes,
so we talk about shared trauma. A part of that shared trauma is the fact that when we see these things, it's activating things in our DNA. It's like a light switch. You go to your
most
fuse box, you
definitely.
turn off one light, and it may turn off all the lights in the house, but you turn it
Yes,
back on,
that's
and bam.
good.
So yeah, so we have to connect it to where it's yes, it's a shared trauma, but why? Why don't Caucasians have shared trauma? Why? Because they don't have our historical and cultural trauma. So there is a reason why they can see a Caucasian person get killed by the cops and go back and eat dinner. We
Mm,
see it and it can shut down our whole evening. And we're texting
mhm.
friends like, have you seen this? We're texting our parents, are you okay? Have you made it home safe? So then it becomes a safeguard, whereas we're all wondering, why am I feeling this way for someone I don't know? And it's really because you do know them. You do know them.
Right,
Their ancestors suffered just like mine. So we have the
right.
same components.
Most definitely. And then we're seeing that it's more common than not, because I think, especially as black men, we all have been pulled over.
Yeah.
We all have sat on that curb with the bright light shining on us. And even
Well,
we
yeah, and it's
as,
not new.
no, it's
Yeah,
not,
and it's not
even as
new. It's
educated
just
men.
that, yeah, it's not new. It's just that because we have cameras now, it
Hmm.
is more prolifically seen. But
Right.
this is 2021. You don't think this was happening worse in the 70s and the 50s?
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
But who was to tell us? And then who was writing the narrative, though? So if you
Right.
saw a police report written by a white officer, you would assume that what they were saying was fair because they were here to serve us. Now we see the evidence where it's contrary. So not only are we dealing with the effects of trauma, we're also dealing with the effects of distrust. And studies show
Yes.
that, and studies show that when a population doesn't feel protected, it drives up the rates for things such as depression and anxiety. But once a population feels like, so for example, we have anti-Asian hate laws, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
They feel safe because they know if something happens to them, more than likely there's a law that says you can be punished for this reason. But we don't have
Hmm.
an anti-black hate crime. So if we
Hmm.
had that, some of us may not experience some of the feelings that we have now because a sense of safety and
We
security
could
drives
definitely,
down that
that
feeling.
that's it. Safety, one of the hierarchies of, if we go back to the basic of Maslow's
Mhm.
hierarchy of needs, safety is always
Yeah,
that. But I want to kind of
yeah.
shift a little bit, because I know we're
Sure,
talking
sure,
about
sure.
some physical trauma, and that has happened in
Yeah.
our life. Maybe it's a health result or something else that has
Hmm.
really slowed our own nature down, and which is something that we as men deal with a lot of times.
Yeah,
No matter your ethnicity, when we go through a traumatic or health experience and it slows us down, it can have some traumatic experiences, because that we think that we're no longer as viable or productive as we once were, but we really still are.
absolutely.
But that whole road to recovery is a journey, and we don't want to lose hope, because a lot of depression can sink in at that time too.
Well, absolutely. And this is why, from my perspective, well, from my lens, we should have trauma-informed practices. So if I'm your
Yes,
physician and I know that you suffered
yes,
suffered an accident, not only am I treating you for the wound, I'm asking you, how's your stress level? Do you have,
right.
or I may do a pre-screen for depression or anxiety. And then if I feel is worthy of a referral, I may mention, hey, have you considered seeing someone to deal with the psychological effects? Because what if you're
Hmm.
healing doesn't mean that you go back to normal? So some men are struggling with, I want to go back to what was, and no one's helping them to understand that what was is not there. But how do we
Right.
create a new normal for you to feel as capable, but also understand that you being limited is not your fault, and it does not decrease your likelihood of being a man. It's just that something happened to
or
you.
your
It
likelihood of
wasn't
being
your fault.
successful. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Again, audience, we are so excited. So, listen, if you want to continue to engage, please engage with us on our two platforms that we're definitely encouraging you. On Facebook, please go to my Mental Health Matters with Marty page. And on YouTube, please check out Marcel Media Group. And we would love to share your comments. But I'm so happy to have back with us again, Cory. Listen, this is not his first time on here. Listen, he's holding it down in that Pittsburgh, PA area. We're so glad to have my boy, my homie, my colleague, none other than Mr. Johnnie Geathers himself. Johnny!
Yo,
What's happening, Johnny? How are you, man?
I'm well. I'm well. Glad to be on.
Yes, listen, man, so glad to have you. I know it's been a minute. Listen, we all have been trying to survive during this COVID time, in our own perspective worlds and everything. Johnny, for those who may have not had an opportunity to check out the other shows you were on, please share with us who you are, all the great stuff you're doing in that Pittsburgh area, man, and yeah, get us caught up.
Yes, yes.
Yes. No, can you hear? Remind us who you are again, Johnny, and what you do out there in
All right.
Pittsburgh.
Okay. All right. So in Pittsburgh, I am a mental health therapist for Family Links Incorporated. With my position, I'm in a therapeutic classroom where I work with kids from first grade to third grade, provide individual and group therapy to the
Mm-hmm.
kids. Also, making sure I connect with the staff and just making sure to connect with the staff and the families, making sure that the kids get their needs met, so able to
Right.
transition out into mainstream classroom setting.
Right.
And right
Wonderful.
now, yeah, right now I'm on break, so I'm enjoying my summer break.
I'm not mad at you. Wait a minute, Johnny. I think we got your title wrong in your name. You didn't correct us.
Uh,
Uh-oh.
what?
Wait a minute. Cory, Johnny got some new letters added onto his title as of yesterday. He got some new letters. Listen, I'm
Yeah.
proud of my brother. What's these new letters, Johnny?
All right, so the new letters that has been added to my name as of yesterday is LSW. So
Yes.
yesterday I passed my social work licensing exam, and I now,
Woo!
well, in a couple of weeks, once the state approve everything, I'll have my LSW.
Listen,
You
man,
got it
so
already.
proud of you. Yeah, there we go. That's right. That's right. Listen, we know how to fix that, Johnny. We can fix that. We fix it right on the spot. Man, so proud of you. Proud of you as a
Thank you,
black
thank
man
you.
in this mental health field. You know, we are still the one percenters. We are still the one percenters, and what we do, me, you, Cory, so many others, Thomas, and so many, we are still the one percenters because when we're talking about mental health, the face of mental health does not look like us. It does not. And so, man, I celebrate you. I'm so proud of you. That is not an easy exam to take. Man, and
Not at
you know,
all.
listen, not easy at all. And I'm so proud of you. Listen, Trisha says, congrats. That's right. Congrats, man.
Thank you, thank
It's
you.
worth celebrating and everything. You know, we've been talking about men's health and wellness during this month, during the month of June. And Johnny, I brought you on last week. We had Jeff Walker on, and he shared about his stroke that he had. And I know that you have been very candid in sharing your journey and your success story. And I think it's so important that we as black men and black and brown communities, we know, yeah, see, that's what we're talking about. It's very important that we share our stories. share our successes, because too often we focus so much on the negativity that we never talk about the road to recovery, the road to success, and how you beat the odds. And not only did you beat the odds, but then you can we say you got your L in front of that, in front of those initials as well, in the midst of all that? Man, you are
Yeah.
worth celebrating, man. So for those who have may never, Corey, have you even heard Johnny's story?
I probably haven't because I wouldn't remember because I love
Yes.
stories. I love backstories. So
Yes, yes. Johnny, share with us your story and your road to recovery, man. Because I know the first time I heard it, my mouth dropped because I was just like, "What?" So share with us, Johnny, your story and your road to recovery.
All right. I'll take it back to 2018.
Yes.
At the time, yeah, at the time in 2018, even though I was working with my job that I'm in right now, I had
Right.
another job that I was working in the evenings doing outpatient therapy. So I
Mm-hmm.
had a full time job as a therapist, and I had a part time job as a therapist.
Come
Then,
on.
along with that, I'm involved in a lot of things, especially with my fraternity. Shout out to my brothers
Right.
of Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated. So I was just doing a lot, just going
Right.
above and beyond. Um, Went back home to Philadelphia for the Thanksgiving holiday, and I remember it like yesterday, like
Mm-hmm.
soon, like the day before Thanksgiving. Went
Right.
home, went to fall asleep, and I fall asleep on
Right.
the floor in the living room. I was like, I'm tired. Let me just lay down on the
Right.
floor.
Right. Right.
The next morning, which was Thanksgiving Day, woke up and I'm in the ambulance going to the hospital.
Wow.
I'm like, what
Wow.
in the world? Why am I
What happened?
in the
Right.
ambulance going to the hospital, things like that? So the paramedics, people were saying that you had a seizure in your sleep. And I had a seizure in my sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So emergency room, laid in, the hospital bed, emergency room, and automatically told me, yeah, you had a seizure in your sleep. I saw my mom, I saw my parents, they was all crying and worried about what happened to me and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I said I had to stay home for stay with the family for like a few weeks just to figure out
Mm-hmm.
what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay. I informed both of my jobs at the time, told them that okay, I'm not going to be back after the break because I had the seizure. I
Right.
even told
Right.
my fraternity brothers the same thing. I'm not going to be back because I had the seizures. But
Mm-hmm.
after that short period of time, that's when I ended up having two more seizures back to
Mm.
back on the same day, which was on December 10th, 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So, what was significant on that day was the same day I was supposed to meet with the neurologist to figure out what was the cause of
What was
my
right?
seizures.
Right.
What was the reason why I was having the seizures in my sleep?
Right.
So, after that moment, with those two seizures happening back to back, one time it happened at midnight. The next
Mm-hmm.
time it happened at 4 o'clock in the morning. That same
Mm-hmm.
day. So once I got cleared out of the hospital again, that's when I went straight to the neurologist appointment. And the neurologist automatically told me that you know what, you got to stay with your family until we figure out what is the cause of you
What's
having
going
these
on?
seizures.
Right. Right.
So during that time, my mind just went left. I'm like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to stay. I don't want to stay home. I was worried about.
Right.
I was worried about my job. I was worried about both of my jobs. I
Mm-hmm.
was worried about my apartment. I was worried about
Mm-hmm.
the stuff I already had playing with my fraternity, and just a
Mm-hmm.
lot of things that was going on and above. So during that time frame of the whole neurology appointment, I had to put on medication. The
Mm-hmm.
medication that I'm on is called Keppra, which I take it in the morning and I take it in
Mm-hmm.
the evening. Make sure I stay up for seizure.
Mm-hmm.
But during that time frame, it was difficult because there was a moment where I left out on my family. I had two emotional breakdowns because it was a
Mm-hmm.
point that I just like was holding up, bottling up emotions that I was like keeping
Mm-hmm.
to myself, and I had a point
Mm.
where I just lashed everything, like just lashed out and just released everything. But after that release of
Right.
those emotions, I felt a relief. I felt much better because even though I
Wow.
was releasing the emotions, I was feeling at the of staying put with the family and just being stuck. but also I was releasing emotions that I held in for a long time, even ever since
That's
I was a
good.
little kid and stuff. So after
Mhm.
that release, that's when I was able to like have a communication with my family more. And my
Yeah.
mom and my younger sister, they automatically told me, it was like, well, you're a therapist, right? You love helping people and you love working with others. Why you don't go seek help for yourself? And I thought about it, and I was like, I had went to therapy when I was going through like personal things within myself when I felt
Mm-hmm.
the
Right.
exam those last few times. But then I was like, you know what? Take heed and go back again. So when I got back well and stable in February 2019, that's when I was able to come back to Pittsburgh. When I came back to Pittsburgh, that's when I started. I had quit my second job.
Good.
Mainly, I said I'm just stick to one job only.
Right.
One job
Right.
is only enough. I
Right.
told some of my fraternity brothers that certain things I can't really do as much because I don't want to overwhelm myself.
Good.
I learned that I had to learn how to say no to certain things. I can't be the yes man all the time when it comes to certain things. And then also I had to, now I don't want to say let go of certain people, but like stay a distance from certain people as well because
Boundaries.
certain people,
Healthy boundaries.
yeah, yeah, the boundaries. So
Mhm.
dealing with that, and once I was able to manage those things, I've been on a high rise
Up and
rocket ever since then. Up and up. I haven't had a seizure since that
see.
third
See.
seizure in 2018. I'm staying, sticking to my medication.
Mm-hmm.
There was a moment where I wasn't supposed to be drinking, but I had a little something here and there. But I stopped that again, so I haven't
See.
had a drink since
Excellent.
last month. So I'm sticking to
Yeah.
it and just sticking to following
Hmm.
the doctor's orders, so I could be, maintain to be healthy, not just for myself, but be healthy for my family. I realize that my family cares about me just as enough as I care about myself and my health.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. Corey, I saw your mind going because mine was going too. Talk to me,
Yeah,
Corey.
you
Talk
know,
to me. Talk to me.
so, I heard a lot.
Yeah.
I will say that you lashing out is typical. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's not normal for us to receive it because we're family, but the but it really is because of proximity. So if you lashed out at a
Mm-hmm.
hospital, it'll be the doctors or the nurses or whatever. So it's
Right.
not
Right.
particularly towards your family. It's just proximity.
Mm-hmm.
But what I heard, because 99% of my clients are black men, and
Mm-hmm.
99% of them break down crying in the first and second session because they finally either had
Yep.
enough or they felt the freedom just to be, you know?
Yes.
And you could only hold so much, you could only hold so
Right.
much. And I'm glad that you got a chance to let that out and that you were not
Yes.
persecuted for finally being available because what we tend to do in our society is we tend to not raise men
Mm-hmm.
to be emotional. Then when they finally hit the limit, why
That
are you so
part.
emotional? We can't have the
Mm-hmm.
contradictory upbringing, and then we downplay when no one modeled for us that emotional outlet. My kids, we talk all the time. I didn't have it growing up, but I'll be damned if my
Right.
kids are going to explode one day.
That's right.
Um,
But Corey, before you
and it's
move
all
past your
tough
point,
conversations.
yeah,
Sure.
I want to hit that hard because you said it best. We as men, and I'm going to even target any. We as black men are
Hmm.
taught not to be emotional. Then when we explode, they go, "Well, why are you so emotional?" Well, and Johnny, you said it right. I suppressed all of that and I always call it the Coca-Cola syndrome that is
Hmm.
shaken up so much till we first, and you said it best, we implode
Hmm.
seizures. We implode strokes. We implode high blood pressure. We implode diabetes. We implode domestic violence. Can the list go on?
Yeah.
We implode
Yeah.
anger, losing our jobs. We implode drinking. We implode sexual addictions. We implode all these
Hmm.
other things to cover up by not addressing the issue at hand, not releasing and sharing
But let me add something
how
to
we're
that
feeling.
because I
Please.
yeah, I want I want to add something because, like, again, I don't like to persecute us for things that we had to cope with.
No.
So, so when we look at our parents, we look at our ancestors,
Mm-hmm.
who was going to help them with racism? Who was going to help them
Right.
with being black? Nobody. So the only thing we could do was shut up and work. The only thing we
Mm-hmm.
could do. So
Hmm.
we passed down that as habit. So no one told us to shut up and work, but we saw our fathers do what he had to do, and we saw our mothers do what they had to do just to get through the day. So what it looked like for us was we don't talk about feelings. No, it's not that we don't
Right.
talk about feelings. We never had the room. So now we're trying to undo hundreds of years of
Yes.
conditioning and said it's okay because
Yes.
we can come back to the table now because we have
Yes.
therapists that look like you and me. We have people that are vouching for us now and saying it's okay for you to let your entire self enter the room.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not to
Yes.
persecute what our parents did. It's to say I I understand why you taught me
Mm-hmm.
that inadvertently. And I don't even think it's always on purpose. It's inadvertently through our own actions. Now we can say,
Yes.
okay, now it's time for course correction. Now I can teach my children a little differently so we can interrupt that. So
Right.
my work is about interrupting
I love
patterns
it.
that just don't work for us anymore.
Yeah, let's go back to that comment that Brother Anthony Evans had put up. Thank you, Anthony, for sharing that. Please, great conversation, guys. We need this. Yes, trauma is omnipresent. We deal in different ways, mainly wrong. Anthony, I totally agree with you because we don't practice proper coping skills. We have not been taught proper coping skills and coping mechanisms with that. So we then take it out well, I'll say it this way: we take it in first, and then we take it out. So the outward expression is all the inward that we press down. You can only put so much stuff in a trunk
Hmm.
and sit on it for so long and tie it and wrap it up. Have you ever got? I remember one time I was traveling and I had just forced my suitcase so much stuff in it that by the time it came down the conveyor belt, it had already burst at the seam, and they took some duct tape and don't judge
Oh
me,
my.
don't judge me, and put some duct tape around it. But but that's how a lot of times, because we suppress it so much till it exploded. So my clothes were dirty because I guess it fell out on the tarmac or something, because it had just exploded. And how many of us have had explosions in our lives just like that because our emotions got the right? I hear you, Corey. And I grew up in a domestic violence household, so I get it. I if anything else, I knew explosion because everything was built up so much, that that's the only emotion that we experienced and knew of, you know.
And
but
as a
but but
kid, you learn how to regulate yourself through
th-
what your parents did or didn't do.
that's
So
right,
if your
that's
parents
right.
Right.
didn't model how to regulate those feelings, okay, so you're sad, let's talk about that. Or you're angry, how do you want to
Mm-hmm.
choose to deal with that? Then it's no surprise that as adults, the way I look at trauma is I don't judge behavior. I look at the source of that behavior. So that's the difference between what I
Yes,
do is because
that's
every time I
good.
see any behavior, whether it's joy or sadness, there's a root to
Right.
that. That's a story I want to know, and probably that's a story you've never told. And when you tell the story, the
Yes.
first it's a relief, and then you
Yes.
understand, wow, there's something wrong with me. Something happened to me. So let's deal with that aspect. So now you stop blaming yourself for something you had no idea how to deal with.
Yes, and Corey, I think you hit the nail right on the head when we're coming to, and Johnny, you were sharing that in the midst of that, you just went off, just kind of got everything that was in you and finally got it out. And I love it because you said it. We didn't even plan this. You said you just felt so much relief, in that. Share with us,
Hmm.
Johnny, now your road to recovery and what that looks like from December 2018 to present day 2021.
Um, road to recovery, as I can see, like right now, is just one. One, the first thing mainly is just to continue to follow the doctor's orders. Just making
Yes,
sure that I'm taking my medication as I'm supposed
yes,
to. Don't skip on the meds.
right,
Making sure that I'm getting a amount of rest. Making sure that I, continue to eat. Eat right, drink
right, right,
water.
right.
Also, whenever I feel a particular way when it comes to like my feelings,
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid to talk about it. Afraid to call
Good.
someone, like call my mom, call like some brothers, people that I'll
Mm-hmm.
be able to talk to, just to release certain things out. Or if I'm not able to talk to somebody, then I could just, try to practice like coping skills, like going for a
Right.
drive, taking a walk. Some now, since it's nice outside, just go to like my favorite spot by the water and just sit there and just reflect on,
Come on, water.
certain things. reflect on certain reflect on
Yes.
certain things. Um, and mainly, yeah, and just focusing on like what mainly just listening to my body. If I know my body
Mm,
saying, okay, you need to take a break, take that
that
break.
part. Yep. Yep.
If yeah,
I,
no trying to like over so
That's so important. Talk to us, Cory. You're right there. You're right there.
yeah, I was going to say, oftentimes we mistake this traumatic feeling as such as a mental
Mm-hmm.
process. But
Mm-hmm.
often what I tell myself and even, my clients is let's do body scans on occasion. So if your feet are
Ooh,
hurting,
that's
is it
good.
because you went walking a lot? If you can't explain
Mm-hmm.
that pain,
Mm-hmm.
it could be somatic. It could be a mental
Right.
reaction because, if your
Right.
joints are hurting, and again, going back
Right.
to stress, if you're having gut pain, if you're constantly
Mm-hmm.
sick, if that cold lasts much longer than usual, because
It
when you're in
lasts longer
survival
than
mode,
COVID.
it absolutely, because see, people
Right.
don't realize that if you're in constant survival mode, your body has to borrow resources from your immune system so you can fight or flight
Yes.
in that scene. So if you're in a constant
Right.
influx of stress, your body is vulnerable to everything. And that's why we see totally healthy looking people fall out.
Yes. Yeah. And that's so
mm-hmm,
true because
mm-hmm.
you're right. Our body holds stress. You
Absolutely.
know, and it has also, I call it this, Cory and Johnny, stress memory. Just like,
That's true.
yes, just like we have muscle memory, I believe we also have trauma, and I don't want to call them nightmares, but when you're triggered and you just have continue to have flashbacks and remembering that event, and you're constantly reliving it in
But
everything
here's the
that you
scary
do.
part about that is
Hmm.
But here's the scary part about that. You don't even need to have reminders that you're constantly stressed out.
Right,
But as you said, stress memory says, since I'm so used to this, I'm always triggered. But I don't have a response
right,
anymore because I've dulled the senses. My body always knows I'm in stress, so why would I have a response now? So you can be
right.
walking around every day for a whole year in a constant stress response, but no one, including you, knows until again you have that stroke. So we talked about that. And that's
Yes,
why it's a silent killer because by the time your blood pressure
yes.
is that high and you feel it, like if you can feel hypertension, you're in trouble. If you can
That's
feel a
true.
symptom of hypertension, you're already in trouble. And
Right.
so
Right.
that's why it's such a scary thing because I have hypertension. Last week I told my
Hmm.
spouse, I said, I don't feel well today. Because I'm aware of that.
Hmm.
So yes, my blood pressure was very high.
Hmm.
And it's only because I knew that. But how many of us are
Hmm.
walking around thinking, oh, well, because I don't feel something,
Hmm.
there's nothing wrong?
Hmm.
So that's why we have to have those yearly physicals because we can look at
Yes.
our A1C levels and see if we're diabetic or we're on the cusp. We can see if we've had hypertension for a while. We can do
Hmm.
those invasive scans. Or if your doctor says,
Hmm.
well, so we found this in your blood, so why don't we do a more extensive test? That's why I'm
Hmm.
so and so I'm having my physical next month because
Hmm.
it's about being it's about learning how to be proactive in a space where
That's
we were
right.
never taught to be that way. We don't go
And
out to
we
the doctor until our tooth is already out, you know. So
Mm.
but we can't be too often though, but we avoid doctors and we avoid mental health therapists because we're fearful also of what we know that there's something already going on, and we're fearful of the diagnosis itself. And so we have to be mindful. We have to take that
yeah,
stinking
yeah,
thinking away. And what I do, I use
it's the
my
stigmas
watch a
and
lot of time.
barriers.
It is. And I will check my heart rate throughout the day when I'm feeling tense or I'm
Mhm.
feeling excited, or pay attention that I know I carry stress right in the back of my head and on my shoulders. And if those two things are tight, that's a key indicator and I'm going to say it this way in business terms, KPI, key performance indicator, that my body is not performing like it should. Therefore, I need to immediately change the situation so that it's not affecting me as headaches, as body aches, as we have to pay attention to those things, dry mouth or whatever. We need to make sure that we are paying attention because our body is giving us the signals that something is wrong. Yes. So, Johnny,
I
I'm glad that
agree.
you say you pay attention to that. What I love that you said going to your favorite body of water. Mine is the beach. I got to get back to the beach. Yes. Now that you've experienced it yourself, you're a mental health therapist, and sometimes we can be the worst patients ourselves. I got about two or three different therapists I call, be like, "Hey, I need an emergency session. Okay, I got to back up to the backup. I got to back up to the backup, Johnny." Because you've gone through that, how has that changed even your approach to doing your sessions, and especially when it comes to trauma, that you now can connect really a lot with your trauma patients, even with some of the kids that you do? I know you're in a school setting, but identifying the trauma that these kids go through as well.
Well, I could say I can even bring it back to the point when I actually was able to return back to work after I had kind of
Hmm.
had that recovery phase
Right, right,
of the seizures. Um, the kids, when I returned, the kids had welcomed me back into open arms because
right.
one, they had missed me. They missed me. One, two, they was
Hmm.
worried about me, and
Right,
then also three, they was just wondering when I was going to come back because
right.
no one, including myself, no one knew to be able to come back to work and such. So when I was able to come back, the kids was able to embrace what I went through, but it also I was
Hmm.
able to embrace and understand what they go through on a daily basis as well. So
Yes.
that kind of helped build that relationship back.
Oh, that's
Help
good.
one, yeah, build the relationship back up, but also continue the relationship that was lost because, like I told you before, most of the
Yes.
kids had missed me when I was gone. Most of the kids started acting up when I was gone because even when I was still like in my recovery, even still at my recovery phase, I was like contacting my teachers and stuff in the classroom
Hmm.
just the kids to say, okay, are the
Hmm.
kids all right? And I always would ask about certain ones because I already know certain ones that I had like a real close relationship with.
Right,
And since
right.
I've like been, was away for like 3 months at that time, that I already
Hmm.
knew that certain things was going to act up, like this certain child was
Hmm.
going to act up, or this certain
Hmm.
child was going to act a certain way
Look at him,
because
Corey, still in his
I'm not there.
healing
I'm
process,
not
still
there.
trying to help. You got to take the computer and phone away from y'all. Yeah, y'all just gonna defy
Well,
doctor's orders, still trying to work. Come on.
but yeah, it was. But look, the only reason why I was doing that at that time was because it was a moment where I was thinking about them,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever. And with me being away for so long, I'm like, I already know that certain things was going on. So
Hmm.
like I was text my teachers and stuff here and there. And then there are some moments I was like, you know what, I'm gonna just leave it alone because I got to focus on me. I'll deal
Hmm.
with them when I come back. And when I came,
That's good.
that's
Hmm.
when everything was, good and rolling.
Yeah. And I think that's so important that we have to, as Black men and men, period, learn how to take care of ourselves because we cannot take care of others, especially those of us in the help fields and the service industry and the mental health and the human services. It's our nature to want to help others. It just is. I can't help it. I'm equally guilty here. Uh,
Hmm.
uh, but we have to take care of ourselves, self care. And I'm such
But can I
a
add?
advocate. Please, Corey.
No, I was going to add because it's easy. Like for me, when I tell my clients, have self care,
Hmm.
take the time out. But then I also want to be able to impress the support system that they have. So if you're a wife or a partner to a Black man and he wants to have self care, and you penalize him for that because you have this
Hmm.
ultimate image of a man that is failing him as well, you're just as guilty of hurting him as well. So
That's good.
I always
Mm.
say I
Ooh.
can, I can patch up the boat, but if I put the boat in dock and you put another hole, we're starting all over again. So sometimes it's
Mm,
integrating not just the man, but his support system, his
that's
wife,
good.
or his husband, or his throuple,
Right, right,
everybody has,
right, right.
their own thing. But, but
You said
also, because
throne.
sometimes we do want that break. Yes, I did. Uh, but,
Johnny,
we
help him.
have this
Help
life.
him, Johnny.
You know, I I deal with
Yeah,
realism. Someone asked me, yeah, I deal with realism. Listen, ain't my business as long as you're happy. But it's like when you're working with children, and you may know this, Johnny,
Right.
that sometimes you have to integrate the parents. So if you're teaching
All
a
the
kid a
yes,
time.
skill,
all the
and
time.
if you send a kid home and that skill is not supported, then you pretty much have failed. So if I
Yes.
teach a client, hey, you need to learn how to breathe and have meditation time. Well, your wife needs to tell the kids, don't bother daddy while he's in the second bedroom for about a half hour because he's doing the self-care. So there's partnership in healing. There's
Mm-hmm.
partnership. If
Hmm.
you're not by
That's
yourself,
good.
you're not by yourself. There's
Hmm. And
partnership
even,
in healing. And also, as you know, healing prospers with partnership and depression thrives in isolation. So
ooh, say that one more time so the folks in the last row of the church can hear it.
I said healing thrives in partnership and depression and anxiety thrive in isolation.
Ooh, that's good. Healing
Mm.
thrives in
That was
partnership,
deep.
and depression and anxiety thrives in isolation. That's a hashtag. Hashtag don't
Okay?
isolate. Right, but it's so true, and you're right. We need to teach also not just the ones who's experiencing the trauma, but those who are supporting the person in the trauma as well. The support groups. I love that, Cory. We have to teach them also collective coping skills. Come on, we talking good tonight, y'all. Collective coping skills in managing us collectively as a unit. Yes, we're talking about managing, and I love it. Why can't we teach our children relaxation, meditation, grounding exercises? So now we're teaching them at an early age how not to allow anxiety and stress to get the best of us in this. And that was a shameful plug for my podcast tomorrow. We're dealing with how to remain calm in a restless society. So please download, listen to that. That's coming out tomorrow
It's your
on
show.
talking about stress and anxiety. I know. Hey, we do that,
It's
huh?
your show.
Uh,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yes.
I,
Oh my
I
goodness.
can
Go
I say
ahead,
this?
Johnny. Hmm.
I like how Corey had brought up the piece about this support system being
Hmm.
on board in terms of supporting the man, and I could bring up again the example with me within myself when I had that
Right.
moment to lash out and release my emotions. Ever since then, now that my mom will always, even when she calls me on the phone, or even when I go back home to visit the family, she will always check on me and ask me like, "How are you
Hmm.
doing?"
Hmm.
Um, you could talk to me and tell me what's going on now because she already
Mm,
knew what happened at that, what
that's
happened
good.
before. So she's able to open up more and ask me how I'm doing, how I'm feeling, and I could be open
Wow.
and honest to share how I'm feeling and things like that. And then not along with just asking myself that, but now she can ask that to my siblings as well too.
Hmm.
That's good, Johnny. That is so good. Wow, wow. Can you believe the time goes by so fast? And
Yeah.
Johnny, I can't thank you enough for sharing your story. Cory, I can't thank you enough for always coming on, being the trauma specialist that you are, and everything. Johnny, for our listeners that want to hear more and follow you, how can our listeners get a hold of you and reach out to you?
All right, so everyone, you can follow me on Instagram at JG the Mastermind.
Come
If
on,
you want to
Mastermind.
on LinkedIn, on LinkedIn, you could type in my name, Johnny Geathers, comma MSW. Soon that will change soon, so I'm gonna have to change
L.
that. Add the credential on there. Yeah, add the credential on there. Also, if anybody would follow me on Facebook, you could just type in Johnny RM Geathers. Also on my social media platforms and on YouTube, I do JG Mental Health Fridays, where I just
Yes,
talk
you
about
do.
different topics that go through and for anyone at age. And also, I do have a
Wonderful.
website through Wix that people could just go on there just to learn about more about my journey
Come on,
and
Johnny.
watch the videos and contact me if they want to reach out to me for speaking engagement and things like that. Again, Marty, thank you for having me on your platform as always. Always have a ball and
Johnny, you know we got
just
nothing but
glad to be
love for
on
you
there.
here. Corey, don't you? Johnny needs to write a book now, and we need a book out
Yeah.
to share the road to recovery with JG.
And I'm a ghostwriter, so yeah, I'm a ghostwriter too.
Oh,
Um,
did you hear? Did you
yeah,
hear him throw that out? Did you hear him? That's what I
But
love.
look, all right,
yeah.
but look, let me tell y'all this though. Let me
Right,
at the time when I was at that point of like recovering with my seizures,
right,
I was in the process of trying to write a book or whatever. I was just drafting out certain like different
right,
things, just going through like my whole childhood into where I am now.
right.
But then what caused that lash out at the time was when my mom was saying something and she had struck the nerve. That's when I just went off. And then and at that time when I had went off, that's when I just deleted everything. So you never know. I might
It's
be a
it's
time where
time.
I need
It's
to
time
write
to
me a book.
That's right. It's time to reconstruct it. Let's go. You got your writer over here, Corey, who the mastermind himself, who will help you out.
Yeah,
Corey,
I'll try.
how can our followers follow you and all the exciting things? Are we sharing your latest encounter, or we have to still keep that under wraps right now? I
Um,
appreciate knowing.
I will say this. Look for me on cable TV next summer. I'll just say
Okay,
that. Look for
okay,
me on cable
okay,
TV next summer.
okay,
All
okay.
But
right.
I'm so
yeah,
excited. I'm trying
yeah,
to grow up and be like y'all.
um, the easiest way, the most active way you'll see anything I think, feel, and touch about trauma is on IG. It's Cory George Cares. Very simple. Just don't put an E in Corey and you'll find me. You can go to my
Okay,
website and find out about my background, about the work I love to do, and the work that I could possibly help you do is CoryGeorge.com. And hit me up. I'm usually free to talk about this stuff. This is my wheelhouse, my passion, my purpose, and I will die doing this. If this is my last day, I'll be
love it.
happy doing this work. So
Well, man, Corey, as always, we thank you for the rich knowledge that both you and Johnny bring. And thank you for, again, making this such an amazing show as we talk about men's health and the importance and value of that. So, again, thank you for joining us. Listen, you can always reach out to me on our various social media platforms. I never know, Daryl. So you start throwing them and I'll start saying them. I won't get it one day. Yes, yes. Please check out my my website at mentalhealthmarty.com. There you will also find lots of merchandise to support you along your mental health journey. We would love your support with that. And as I mentioned yesterday, please check out the podcast as we're talking about, in a sense, the road to recovery and how to find calmness in the midst of an anxious world. So again, if you are an Apple listener, please give us a 5-star rating and leave us a review. And also become an I Matter member of Mental Health Matters with Marty by texting I Matter to 855-717-1272. We would love to have you. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. As we said, Johnny has come in here and shared his heart, and we appreciate Johnny's story because too many of us are secretly suffering in silence in the shadow of shame because we have so much hostility, anger that we've carried on for years, for decades, since childhood. And Johnny has shared with us the effects that it had on him. Please, we don't want anyone to have to go through that. And we thank God for Johnny's recovery and that he did not allow the trauma to block him from his blessing, but he kept fighting. You too have the strength to do it. But how do you do it? By not suffering in silence in the shadow of shame. But as I say each week, you have to speak up, speak out, and live. But more importantly, always remember to enjoy your life. See you tomorrow.